All right, today we're looking at the assignment 8.2, Normal Distributions Part 1, and we're going to go ahead and look at the second page. So it says, normal distributions. A normal distribution has a mean of 22 and a standard deviation of 3. Find the probability that a randomly selected x value is in the given interval. Now, before we can do this, we're going to first have to draw our normal distribution. So I'm going to start just with the shape of the normal distribution, which looks something like that. Now, smack dab in the middle, I'm going to put my mean, which is 22. Then I go 3 lines up and I go 3 lines down. And please note that you always do 3 lines up and 3 lines down for every normal distribution. Now it says my standard deviation is 3. Standard deviation, remember, is the measure of spread, so I know that on average my data is spread out by 3. So heading up, I'm going to be adding 3 each time, and heading down, I'm going to be subtracting 3 each time, because that's my standard deviation. So I take my 22 and I add 3 to it, which gives me 25. I add 3 again, which will give me 28, and I add 3 again, which will give me 31. Now heading down, I'm going to be subtracting 3 each time. So 22 minus 3 will give me 19. Subtract 3 again, and I get 16. Subtract 3 again, and I get 13. Now, I like to also write in my percentages because I think that makes it a little bit easier. So if I look back at the percentages, remember the mean is smack dab in the middle, and then I have 34% on either side. So I know I have 34% here, and I have 34% here. My next percentage is that 0.135, or in other words, 13.5%. And 13.5%. The next percentage is this 0.0235, or in other words, 2.35%. And then, last but not least, here in the little tail, I have that 0.0015, or in other words, 0.15%. Well, now that I have the picture drawn, I can use it to answer questions 9 through 14. So problem 9, I want to know what percent I have between 19 and 25. So, in my picture, I know that 19 is right here, and I know that 25 is right here. In between 19 and 25, I have a 34%, and I have another 34%. So I'm just going to add those percentages together, which gives me 68%. So I know that 68% of my data falls between 19 and 25. Look really fast at problem 13, which says at least 19. Now, if we want to have at least 19, that means we could have more than 19, but not less. So, my 19 is right here, and I want to have at least 19, which means I could have 19 or anything higher. So I'm going to be adding all of those numbers together that are higher than 19. So I have 34 plus 34 plus 13.5 plus 2.35 plus 0.15. And if you add all of that together, you're going to get 84%. So knowing that, I think you're okay to finish that section, but let's go ahead and look at this next section. SAT scores. In 1998, scores on the math section of the SAT were normally distributed with a mean of 512 and a standard deviation of 112. Scores on the English section of the SAT were normally distributed with a mean of 505 and a standard deviation of 111. So again, the first thing I'm going to want to do is draw my normal distribution. And there's not really a ton of space here, so I'm going to go ahead and do this on a new piece of paper. So first, I'm going to draw my math section of the ACT. So I start with my nice normal curve, which looks something like that. And then remember, we draw our mean straight down the middle, and then we go up 1, 2, 3 lines, and we go down 1, 2, 3 lines. Now, it says that on the math section, the mean is 512 and the standard deviation is 112. So the mean, remember, goes smack dab in the middle, 512, right there. Then I'm going to add on my standard deviation, which remember was 112, and that will give me 624 for that next line. I add on another 112, which gives me 736, and then I add 112 to that and get 848. Going the other way, if I take my 512 and subtract 112, I'll get 400. Then I'll get 288. And then I'll get 176. Now I'm also going to fill in the percentages, which remember are up here at the top. So we have our 34%, 13.5%, 2.35%, and 0.15%. So I'm just going to fill those in. I have my 34%, 13.5%, 2.35%, and 0.15%. And those numbers, of course, will mirror on the other side. And then, now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the English section of the ACT. So it says that on the English section, we're normally distributed now, but we have a mean of 505 and a standard deviation of 111. So for English, I'm going to go ahead and draw my normal distribution again. Here's the mean, smack dab in the middle, and then I go up 1, 2, 3, and I also go down 1, 2, 3. Now the mean, remember, was 505, and the standard deviation was 111. So I put 505 here in the middle, and then I'm going to be adding that standard deviation of 111. So if I take my 505 and I add 111, I'm going to get 616. I can add 111 again, which gives me 727, and then I can add 111 again, which will give me 838. Going down, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to take my 505 this time and subtract 111, which will give me 394. We subtract it again, and I get 283. Subtract 111 one more time, and we get 172. Again, I'm going to fill in those percentages, and because it's normally distributed, I know the percentages will be the same. 34%, 13.5%, 2.35%, and 0.15%. And those numbers will mirror on the other side. Well, now that I have the picture drawn, I can go ahead and answer these questions. So this first question says, what is the probability that a randomly selected student who took the SAT in 1998 scored at least 736 on the math section or at least 727 on the English section? So we're going to look at the math section first, and we want to score at least a 736. So if I want to score at least 736, it's okay to get higher than that, but not lower. So I look at my normal curve, and here is my 736 right here. So I'm going to add these sections that are higher than 736. So I have 2.35 plus 0.15, which I'm going to go ahead and type in my calculator. 2.35 plus 0.15, and my calculator says that's 2.5, which means that we have 2.5% of our students who scored at least a 736 on the math section. We also want at least a 727 on the English section. So now I'm going to go ahead and look at the English test and find 727. Notice it lands in the same place. So again, if I want to score at least 727, I'm looking at the numbers that are bigger than that, which are 2.35 and 0.15. If I add those together, I'm going to again get 2.5%. So now that you have these pictures drawn, you should be able to go ahead and finish the second page of this assignment.